Our story begins here in the Gulf of Tonkin on August 2nd, 1964. We are able to retrace the story step by step, using official U.S. Navy film reenacting the Tonkin incidents. Film shot a week after the incidents, most of it never seen before. An American warship, the destroyer Maddox, is spying on North Vietnam, 8 miles offshore. This top-secret patrol is called DeSoto. Not too far away, South Vietnamese PT boats are shelling North Vietnamese islands. That operation, also top secret, is codenamed 34A. Both are loosely coordinated from Washington. On the bridge of the Maddox, Captain John Herrick. 2 days earlier, he'd warned Washington of possible hostile action, cautioning of unacceptable risk. Suddenly, the risk materializes. Radar picks up approaching boats. 3:08 p.m., General Quarters. Herrick requests air support. There is an attack, no doubt about it. 3 and 5-inch guns open fire. A flare-up in the Gulf of Tonkin, hardly the stuff of historic drama, and yet that is the way it was played by Lyndon Johnson, the big, raw-boned Texas politician who had just launched his Great Society and would not be the first president to lose a war. Johnson was then deep in his election campaign against Republican Barry Goldwater, and he wanted to appear moderate but firm. Monday, August 3rd. The president is under pressure from the Joint Chiefs of Staff to retaliate, but with cool calculation, he holds his fire, this time. Instead, he tells reporters that he is sending another destroyer, the Turner Joy, to join the Maddox in the Gulf of Tonkin. The operation, he says, will be continued. Air support will be provided. In the Gulf of Tonkin, the clandestine operations go on despite the obvious risks. The Maddox tuning in on North Vietnam. The South Vietnamese resume commando raids Hanoi considers acts of aggression. Secretary of State Dean Russ cables the U.S. ambassador in Saigon. 34A activities are beginning to rattle Hanoi. August 4th, a day of confusion and controversy. A dark day with storm clouds on the horizon, the kind that play funny tricks with radar. On the Maddox, the radar room is a scene of anxious frenzy. Radar blips, what the sailors call skunks, suggest approaching boats. The Turner Joy also reports skunks, closing in at high speed. Air support from the Ticonderoga is summoned as confusion spreads on both destroyers. At 9:34 p.m., the Turner Joy opens fire into the darkness of a tropical storm, shooting at skunks. Nothing is visible. From Herrick on the Maddox comes a stream of frantic messages. Under continuous torpedoes attack. Successfully avoided at least 6 torpedoes. 4 torpedoes in water. And 5 torpedoes in water. U.S. intelligence then intercepts a strange message from a North Vietnamese naval unit. Paraphrased, it reads, "Have engaged enemy and shot down 2 planes. Morale is high. Men have seen damaged ships." Defense Secretary Robert McNamara knows the information is wrong. No planes have been shot down, no ships have been damaged. But later, in a meeting with Congress, he refers to this message as unimpeachable evidence of the North Vietnamese attack. Johnson urges congressional leaders to pass a joint resolution sanctioning his use of military force against North Vietnam. In time, this Tonkin resolution becomes the equivalent of a declaration of war. The battle in the Gulf of Tonkin lasts 2 hours and 13 minutes. Herrick is beginning to suspect it never happened. Just to be sure, the Maddox performs an experiment. The ship is put into a series of high-speed, intricate turns. What the captain discovers is that the sonar is picking up false signals, the sounds of the ship's own engine and propellers. Herrick then cables the Pentagon. Review of action makes many reported contacts and torpedoes fired appear doubtful. Freak weather effects and over-eager sonar man may have accounted for many reports. No actual visual sightings by Maddox. Suggest complete evaluation before further action. Washington, 6:15 p.m. The National Security Council meets in emergency session. By then, everyone knows the president has decided to retaliate, ignoring Herrick's plea. For McNamara, the North Vietnamese intercept is crucial. On the Ticonderoga and on another aircraft carrier, the Constellation, pilots are alerted for reprisal raids against North Vietnam.
My fellow Americans.
It's 11:36 p.m., no longer prime time, but Johnson refuses to delay his announcement any longer. There is no mention of the official doubts about whether an attack has taken place.
That renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply. That reply is being given as I speak to you tonight.
In fact, the planes don't take off for another half hour, and they don't reach their targets for another hour after that. The element of surprise is blown. Stockdale, filled with doubts, flies into battle. There is heavy resistance. Communist gunners firing back, sending up a cloud of flak. 2 U.S. planes are lost.
You have to be there to realize that the world has turned a corner. I said, we are now locked into the Vietnam War. There's no question about it.
Stockdale and other pilots returned from their attacks against North Vietnam, marking the start of a direct combat role for the U.S. The next morning, McNamara meets the press at the Pentagon.
I can't explain them. They were unprovoked. As I told you last night, our vessels were clearly in international waters.
It is not at all clear that the attack was really unprovoked. What about Herrick's doubts? Specifically, what about the South Vietnamese raids? McNamara carefully denies they've taken place.
No, to the best of my knowledge, there were no operations during the period I was describing last night. Yes.
McNamara knows better. Question: was the incident on August 4th merely a pretext?
Almost 4 years later, in 1968, McNamara testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He defended the Tonkin retaliation, resting his case primarily on that one questionable North Vietnamese intercept, which likely confused August 4th with what really happened on August 2nd. Since then, there is impressive evidence that there was probably no August 4th incident at all, that the U.S. simply seized on the pretext of the moment to begin bombing North Vietnam, something it felt it had to do anyway. In this way, deception on the part of the administration and distrust on the part of the people were woven into the agony of an undeclared war the U.S. could neither win nor understand.